Hello, good day, my SM viewers. This is Satellite Media. Let us look at this political happening in Nigeria, where we're already seeing what looks like South against the North. The last may not have been heard of this defection we are seeing currently, but let us say that the issue of alliance and who occupies Asu Rock have taken the center stage come 2027, because from what we are seeing, it was the Atiku and some Northerners who started the struggle to form an alliance against a Tinubu ahead of 2027 presidential election. And before then, we have seen so many Northerners who have come out clearly to say that voting for a Tinubu in 2023 was a mistake they say they don't hope to repeat in 2027. And we had a situation where someone like Baba Ahmed, of course, who was a presidential aide in the office of the vice president, recently resigned. And he has been very vocal since his resignation, saying that if he should reveal what the Tinubu government is doing to the North, that the whole North will go against the president. But currently, the president have used a system, in a dramatic turn of events. We are seeing defection taking place in Delta State, seeing the former governor of Delta State talking about Senator Ifeanyi Okowa and the current governor, Sheriff, defecting to APC. Of course, that has got people talking since. And the last may not have been seen in this wave of defection. In what looked like they're not fighting back, the Kebbi State Governor Idris is touted to be preparing to defer to PDP, or rather form alliance with the likes of Atiku and El-Rufai, who already coming front to say they want to lead the coalition against Tinubu in 2027. And the way it is, if you look at Delta State and Kebbi State, they have one thing in common. Because before the defection of the governor and the former governor, all the three senators in the state are for APC. In the same vein, if you go to Kebbi State, you understand that all the three senators are for PDP, in spite of the fact that the ruling governor, or rather the governing governor, is of APC. So they have something in common, and all eyes now on Kebbi State to see whether they will form alliance, or rather a coalition with Atiku and Co, or rather the APC will be able to persuade them to remain within the APC fold. Don't forget that before now, we have seen a situation where in a leaked memo where it was stated that the presidency was planning to draft Almakura to go and persuade and prevail on CPC bloc within APC not to dump the party and form alliance with Atiku and Co. And in what looks like making it real, we equally saw Almakura coming out clearly to say we are not forming alliance with Atiku, will remain in APC. But currently, we have seen in another twist, this time around coming from the former Attorney General of the Federation, talking about Malami and some other Northerners, pulling out of that decision of Almakura, saying Almakura is not in a position to speak for the CPC bloc within APC. So the whole issue is neither here nor there. But what is becoming very clear at this point is we are gradually seeing things crystallizing along northern and southern line. And the way it is, I think the battleground will likely going to be the southeast. For obvious reasons, the southeasterners themselves have decided to remain aloof, and the reason is not far-fetched. Their own decision is release the man Nnamdi Kanu. And of course, even when you release Nnamdi Kanu, they are not interested in anything called Nigeria. They are making it abundantly clear that the only thing that interests them is the sovereign state of Biafra. That they have maintained and that they have stick to, it doesn't matter anybody's opinion. Of course, they control the angle of self-determination, which is obviously a right under Nigerian constitution. Hence, it was a UN charter that ratified Nigeria. It's already a law in Nigeria, legal jurisprudence. But the way it is, we are seeing a serious fight between the North and the South. And the way it stands, it is not yet clear who will win in all of this. But let me quickly say that if we want the democracy to strive, the lives of all the leaders of the opposition, for me, what they are doing is merely chasing shadow. What they should strive to do, if they want to have a free, fair, and credible election in Nigeria is to prevail on the system, particularly the National Assembly, to amend the relevant sections of electoral acts. Because for me, that's the best way to have free, fair, and credible election, and that's the best way to make sure a popular candidate wins an election in Nigeria. Remember that in 2023 presidential election, Obi, without a structure, as they want to make us believe, won in many places where he didn't register presence in terms of what they would regard as party structure. Let me say that in Delta State of today, of course, a PDP controlled state, Obi won in that state in that 2023 presidential election. Looking at those states, Obi won handsomely. Looking at all the southeastern states, Obi won in all the southeastern states. Looking at Abuja, the Buhari was the president then, Obi won convincingly. So it is not about who defects. If we get it right in our democracy, it's not about who defects. It's not about who is a political leader. It's about who is a popular candidate. And the only way the popular candidate can be preeminence and win the election is when the needful is done. And to do the needful is to amend the relevant sections of the Electoral Act, particularly Section 82, that talks about transmission of election results. When they said that the basis for which election results of 2023 was contested up to Supreme Court is the very reason that INEC before the election gave us hope that the election results will be transmitted electronically. At the nick of time, during the collation, INEC reneged. They gave excuse of network glitch. Of course, election was contested up to Supreme Court, and as we have it today, the Supreme Court already legitimized the victory of Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu as declared by INEC. And that is because the current Electoral Act gives INEC the liberty, the discretionary power to determine the mode of transmission of election results. So if the stakeholders should use all the energy they are using to form coalition, come together to prevail on the system, on the National Assembly, to amend the Electoral Act, particularly the section that talks about transmission of election results, so that you must transmit election results electronically, else the result will be null and void. If you do that, I think politicians themselves will start looking at the electorates, will start looking at the Nigerians, of course, who have the right to hire and fire when it comes to election, when it comes to voting. But currently, nobody is looking at that. I must tell you that if you look at in almost all the areas where leaders of the party are defecting to APC, I must tell you that in most cases, they don't even need to consult their followers. They would have taken decision before they come back and hand over decision to their followers who have no choice, who have no option, knowing that they don't have any role to play in determining ultimately who win an election. Of course, that right that have been taken away from Nigerians, the right to hire and fire, the only way it can be restored is through minimizing the human interference in the electoral process. And the only way you can minimize the human interference in the electoral process is to amend that Electoral Act that deals with mode of transmission of election results. If you are not doing that, come 2027 presidential election, personally, I'm not seeing anything different from what transpired in 2023. Of course, we're already seeing a new twist where INEC is trying to come up with some idea which they hope to push through National Assembly for amendment of the Electoral Act, to mean that it will not be only the PVC that will determine whether somebody will be eligible to vote. According to the idea that if you have a printout from their database, of course, that you will be accredited and be allowed to vote. We understand that the essence of the PVC before now is to checkmate overvoting, is to checkmate rigging, is to checkmate malpractices. So I don't know how INEC have come to the conclusion that allowing people to use printout from their database will be of help, or rather will deepen democracy or enhance credibility in the electoral process. But the bottom line is we should be looking towards proper electronic voting. So if opposition know that they are interested in anything leadership of the country in terms of winning election through the ballot, I think they should come together and put pressure on the system to amend the relevant sections of Electoral Act. particularly Section 82 that deals with collation of election results. We understand that the normal Nigerian politician will allow people to vote. They may not destroy the system or rather the process. Manipulation proper starts from the process of collation. Because the process of collation starts from the polling unit, where the result will be counted and entered into from EC8A, from where it moves to the ward level, enters so from EC8B, from there it moves to the next stage of local government level, where it enters into from EC8C. But what I'm trying to say in essence is, in the process of moving this thing practically, the hard copy, that is where you see manipulation and all that. But if you transmit the election result electronically from the polling units direct to the INEC server, where election observers, stakeholders can have access to and monitor result as it coming in, of course, we would have dealt with the issue of manipulation that happens in that process of collation. Let me say a very big thank you until we see positive action from stakeholders to do the needful. We will know where we stand. This is Sadla Midana Misamatu.